So in geometry, we have a lot of new vocabulary. We have a lot of new vocabulary. And these pieces of vocabulary are really, really important as we move into the course so that you understand what I'm talking about and so that you can communicate effectively back to me. The first three vocabulary terms that we're going to introduce are called undefined terms. They're point, line, and plane. These are undefined terms because usually when we talk about these, their meanings are readily understood and we have visual representations for these. Who has, in Algebra 1, plotted points? Anybody plotted points before? All right. So usually we represent a point with a dot. A point represents a location in space, but it is not considered to have any length or width or depth. It's kind of like a dust speck floating around in the air, only it's a dust speck that we nail down and we say where it is. Who's graphed lines in Algebra 1? Awesome. Usually you connect 2 points to make a line. A line we represent as straight and then with arrows on the ends of it. And this is one place where geometry becomes much more picky than Algebra 1 when it comes to lines. In Algebra 1, does anybody remember what you were supposed to put on the ends of your lines to show that it goes on forever? You're supposed to put arrows on the ends of your lines to show that even though you stopped drawing that line, it continues on forever in both directions. The same thing is true for a line in geometry, only in geometry we also have something called a line segment. A line segment would be something like my pencil right here. It does not have arrows on the ends of it. It stops at a certain point. It has ends where it does not go any further. So whether you put the lines or not really, really matters in geometry because we're talking about two related but different objects, whether you put the lines on them or don't put the lines on them. And then the third term that we're going to talk about today is a plane. A plane is a flat surface that continues on in two directions forever and ever and ever. A good visual representation of a plane would be like your book or a piece of paper or the top of your desk. Even though these do not go on forever and ever and ever, we get the idea that it is this flat surface that does continue on in two dimensions. So let's talk about how to name these. Once we get through how to name points, lines, and planes, that is where we are going to stop for today. So a point would be the easiest one. A point we represent with a dot, and we name it by a single capital letter. And this is the basis for most of the rest of our naming conventions. As I already mentioned, a point is a location. It does not have shape or size, depth, length, or width. A line is made up of points, has no thickness and no width. There is exactly one line through any 2 points. Does that mean that there can only be 2 points on a line? No. Our lines can have an infinite number of points on them. If you look at this line that is drawn right here, they show 2 of the points. They show points P and Q. And then they talk about how to name that line with those 2 points. You can either write out the word line and then name the 2 points. So we can call this line PQ. The order of the letters does not matter. So we could also call this line QP. Has anybody ever been in a class where they take attendance and they say your first name first and then your last name second? And you're expected to recognize that that's your name? They say your first name and then your last name. What about if they switch it around the other way and they say your last name first and then your first name? Are you still expected to respond when your name comes up? Because even though they flipped the two names around, you know that that's still referring to you. The order of those two names did not change the person we were talking about. Same thing is true with our lines. If I call this line PQ and you call this line QP, we're talking about the exact same thing. There's no difference at all. One of the other ways that we can name lines in written form, we still read it the same way, is we write the names of the points and then we draw an arrow, a double-ended arrow over those two lines. So instead of having to write the word line out each time, we can write P and then Q with a line with arrows over the top of it. If I added another point to this line, like this point right here, I'm going to call this point R. I still would only use 2 points to name this line, even though I have 3 or more points on the line. So I could call this line PR, or I could still call it line PQ, or I can call it line RP, or I could call this line QR, or RQ, or QP. But notice, in all 6 of those names, we only have 2 points listed. A line never, ever, ever has 3 letters. A line will only ever have, at most, 2 letters. All 6 of these names are considered to be the same name for this line. If I call it this one, but you call it this one, that's okay, we're both right. The other way to name a line is with a lowercase cursive letter. A lowercase cursive letter. And in that case, we do not put the line with arrows over the top of it. We have to write out the word line and then use the lowercase letter next to that. So M like this would never be correct. We do not write that. All right. So far, so good? Points are the most simple. Single capital letter, we have a point. For a line, there's 2 different ways of naming it. Lowercase letter with the word line in front of it, or with 2 of the points that are on that line, and only 2 points in either order. And then we either write the word line and those 2 points, or we write those 2 points and we put a line with 2 arrows over the top of it. The last thing that I want to talk about naming today is a plane. A plane, we discussed, is a flat surface. This is made up of an infinite number of points. If you look at the plane that's drawn here, they only show 3 points on that plane. But we can add more points to this plane, like maybe there's a point A over here. Maybe there's a point F over here. Usually when they give us a representation of a plane, we're not going to add additional things to it, but just so you guys understand, planes have more than just 3 points on them. We might only see 3 of those points. Just like with lines, there are 2 different ways to name a plane. We can name it with a capital, script, or cursive letter. So uppercase, cursive, or capital cursive letter. This will not have a dot next to it. This is not a point. This is the name of the whole plane. And sometimes this can get a little bit confusing. It's supposed to look different, but I will warn you right now that in our textbook, and so therefore on the homework assignments and the notes pages, this is supposed to be cursive, but a lot of times it just looks like a regular print capital letter. The way you can tell them apart is it will not have a dot next to it. If it has a dot next to it, then it's a point. If it does not have a dot next to it, then it is naming the entire object. So when we go to name planes, we have to write the word plane out each time. There is no shortcut on that one. You have to write the whole word plane. And then we have 3 points. 2 points for a line, 3 points for a plane. And those 3 points cannot all be on the same line. So we could call this plane BDC. We could call this plane ABF. We could call this plane FCB. As long as you have 3 and only 3 points to name that plane, or you name it with a capital script letter. So far, so good? All right. That is where we are going to stop for today. Tomorrow, we will talk about 2 more terms called collinear and coplanar, and then we will practice identifying and naming some of these objects together. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about today is your homework assignment. This is an introduction video. I'm asking for about 10 seconds of your time today. You can either do this right in Canvas, you can do it from your phone, you can do it from your Chromebook, you can record the video separately and then upload it into Canvas. It is your choice. I'm going to show you that assignment now so that you know what is expected.